Hey guys, I wanted to provide a follow-up to the open letter that we had on last week's episode. So once again, I was hoping maybe you could just kind of like proofread it for me, spot check it, let me know what you think before I ship it off.
Love to.
Okay, here it goes. An earlier communication regarding system performance issues on Magic Online during a Modern League event contained several inaccuracies and inappropriate assertions. Specifically, the letter characterized the platform's performance as a digital ambush and a complete operational failure. These statements were made without the benefit of full information. It has since come to light that the disruption in service was due to a distributed denial of service, aka DDoS attack, and not an internal failure of the Magic Online platform, as was previously and emphatically asserted. We regret the tone, implications, and accusatory language used in the original letter. The suggestion that Magic Online staff were negligent or complicit in a systemic collapse was inappropriate in light of this new information. Furthermore, the use of phrases such as, quote, booted mid-match, and, quote, bled out like a stuck pig, failed to meet the standards of fairness and accuracy that we hold ourselves to as a publication. We would like to make clear that the original letter was issued by the Dive Down Communications Department and reflects the collective editorial failure of that team. Any perception that the statements reflect the personal beliefs or temperament of the author should be corrected. Responsibility lies solely with the editorial process, or lack thereof, that allowed such a message to be disseminated. Hold on. Guys, can I finish?
I don't know.
Can I finish?
No, I don't think so.
I don't know about that.
Finally, while rumors regarding the involvement, direct or indirect, in the aforementioned DDoS attack remain entirely speculative, we categorically deny any formal connection, coordination, or intent by certain members of the Dive Down editorial board, such as David or our producer Shane. The timing of the incident and the tone of our letter are, we assure readers, purely coincidental. We appreciate Magic Online's ongoing commitment to digital security, and we look forward to a prompt reinstatement of our league entry fee.
Hey, is this... Yeah, can you get him on the phone, please? Yeah. Hey, he's doing it again. Yes, you have the letter all ready to go, right? Okay. Thank you. I'll see you in court. Bye.
Is that our lawyer? Is that Greenberg?
That's my lawyer. We no longer have a joint lawyer.
We don't.
There's no we.
After that note, you said some things about me and Shane
What are you
and the
talking
whole
about?
board
What?
actions you took.
I'm speaking on behalf of the whole Dive Down, and always have.
You
sure about that?
No, you do not have that privilege.
What do you know how a lot of people's social media bios will say something like, opinions are my own and do not reflect the opinions of my employer? That's not true here.
Right.
We're co-founders.
Is this not Stanislav DBA, the Dive Down?
No. Dave and I each hold 33% of the same opinions.
I don't know about this.
So do I get
right.
34?
Shane, unfortunately, is at 34.
Yeah. You have the privilege of being a limited liability independent contractor.
Yeah.
I'll take it.
Yeah, you don't have to take any of the heat that's about to come at me from Moto's lawyers, Daybreak's lawyers, etc. You get to sleep well and wake up happy.
Yeah. We should probably get to the episode because I've got some food topics to talk about.
Oh, great.
Hello and welcome to episode 318 of The Dive Down, a Magic the Gathering podcast focused on the latest decks, trends, and strategies for the casual spike. My name is Stanislav here in Chicago, and with me on the line from beautiful Massachusetts, along the eastern seaboard, it's the one and only Devon O'Donnell, aka Doomwake.
It's me. You know, you were talking about food in the intro. I had a pretty nice dinner last night. It was good.
I want to know everything you ate
There was
in detail.
It was the restaurant we went to was a special, and they had a Parmesan risotto with a tomato cream sauce and some little chicken cutlets. It was good.
Whoa.
Yummy.
Twas good.
You know what I had for dinner last night on Easter? A milkshake.
Not bad.
That was it.
Milkshakes
Just a
are good.
milkshake. Yeah.
What kind
great.
of milkshake was it?
Reese's Peanut Butter Cup milkshake.
From where?
I'd rather not say. It wasn't that great.
Okay.
So, but I will say my preferred option for buying a milkshake was closed,
Yeah.
and that would be Culver's.
So you
And
went
it
to
was
Steak
closed.
and Shake.
Not Steak and Shake.
Not Steak
Much
and Shake.
worse. One tier down.
Oh, I had a nice home cooked Easter meal that included lamb and mint jelly, but I have a more important food related topic. By the way, the Godfather Dave Harburger had a milkshake.
Yep. Yep.
Also, as an aside, I'm trying to quit sugar.
Best of luck with
That's
that.
tough.
It is tough because, as David will attest, Stanislav loves
I was
milkshakes.
gonna say I don't know anybody who likes milkshakes more than you, buddy.
Milkshakes and cookies are in my top 5 favorite food.
Yeah, Devon, we went. Do you remember this? Stan and I went to a concert like 6 weeks ago.
Yeah.
And we left the concert at like 12:30 at night, and he stopped and got a milkshake at like 12:30 a.m. after this rock show.
Not surprised.
I was like, wow.
I love milkshakes.
Dedication.
Yeah. Yeah. But regardless, I had a really good sugar. I mean, it probably had sugar somewhere in the ingredients, but I had a not sugar forward meal that I am excited to tell you about. Have y'all heard about this pickle menu at Popeyes?
I heard
No.
about it. Pickle lemonade and such.
They have pickle lemonade,
What?
it's like pickle coated sauce for their sandwich and their wings.
I'm
and
sorry.
they also have like deep fried pickles.
Did you just say pickle lemonade?
Yeah. Yeah. It's like they put a little bit of pickle juice in the lemonade.
Miss me
Yeah.
with that.
Yeah.
I was afraid to buy it, and I should have. I actually regret not trying it. I'm gonna try it when I go back with my wife, since she also likes pickle food, pickle flavored foods. If you like pickle flavored foods, the pickle menu at Popeyes, it's hitting.
I do like me some pickles.
I do, and I might.
It was surprisingly good, and I'm already a big fan of Popeyes, but it was incredible. It was incredible what they've accomplished.
Do they have fried pickles?
They do, yeah.
Ooh.
It's one of like just 3 or 4 items on the pickle menu.
Well, I don't know how many items you could have on the pickle menu. They're already stretching it into, and it's not a pickled menu. It's just pickles,
Yeah,
which
yeah.
is fine. I like a pickle, but
Yeah, all I had was the pickle wings just to try low stakes. They were so good. When I say a lot, like they were spicier than I anticipated. Not that they were unbearably spicy. They weren't like Thai Indian food levels of intense spice, but I was expecting something that was just kind of straight pickle flavoring like you might get with dill pickle potato chips. This is a spicy pickle sauce, and it was excellent.
wow, wonderful.
My
right,
face was
well.
covered in sauce. I looked like a kid who fell into a bucket of fudge.
That was pickle sauce.
Yeah, I guess.
Augustus Bloom pickle.
I should have taken a picture.
Augustus
You,
Gloop.
you know
Yeah.
what? I'm going to go back, eat something really saucy, and take some pictures of myself
Okay,
after.
perfect. Yeah, I love it. Stan, what are we doing this week? Talking about pickles.
Yeah, we can't talk about food anymore. I got my allotment. What we're going to talk about this week is our last week of playing Magic. It was exciting. Devon rolled up to a modern RCQ, casually demonstrated that he's still there to be beaten if you can.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It may or
Not
may not
always
have
easy.
happened.
It's not always easy. I rented Mox Opals in a deck that was meant to try some new cards from Dragonstorm Tarkir. And Dave did some exposure therapy, really coming face to face with his least favorite number.
Yeah. 7.
Yeah.
That's right.
At 8-9.
Yeah. That's why 6 was afraid of it.
Yeah.
That's what they say.
But first, we should housekeep because you can support our show through our Patreon at patreon.com/thedivedown. You can also support us through our online store of swag at thedivedown.com/store and support us with your own Magic hobby and practice from our sponsors, Heavy Play. Get 10% off your first order at heavyplay.com with coupon code THEDIVEDOWN2025, and also get 25% cash back after 3 months of rental service from Mana Traders using promo code THEDIVEDOWN, all one word. Devon has some new Heavy Play gear in a box still.
Yeah, I'm giving it away.
You're giving it
I
away.
am.
On your stream?
Yeah, I don't know when. Probably either Wednesday or Thursday this week.
Well, Devon, might I make a suggestion that you wait until Thursday so that people who listen to this podcast
That's a good point.
can hear it
There you
and
go.
perhaps stop by your stream, twitch.tv/Doomwake, to get this gift. And the things that you have are the carry,
The carrier
box, right?
and
The
the
heavy plate
playmat
carry?
tube.
Yep, and the playmat tube.
Yeah.
Two wonderful products that Stan and I have also been talking about giving away our samples from. We will do that once we figure out the best way to do that for people on a podcast.
I'm using my carrier tube. Look at this guy.
Well, I am happy to give away the one that I got. I got a black carrier and a red tube, I believe. So, but we'll come back to that. For now, Devon, go check out Devon's stream on Thursday. Let's say Devon.
Yeah,
Thursday.
we'll do Thursday.
Yeah.
We'll lock it in.
Yeah. So lock it in. Go check out Devon's stream Thursday afternoon to get a chance to win some new gear.
Yeah, I love my carrier tube. It holds a lot of decks as well as other stuff. And also, people don't talk about this enough. When you're holding it by the little handle, it looks like a plutonium rod that's part of a nuclear reactor.
It kind of does.
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, it looks like Marty. Who are the people? Marty McFly. When he's got the tube, the plutonium.
I see. Okay.
It's a little Back to the Future.
Yeah, I thought you were referring to my son.
No, not your son. Marty McFly.
Your son doesn't carry plutonium around?
No, not yet. He's small.
Just very tiny rods so far. All right, so heavy play, the Dive Down 2025 for 10% off your first order. And finally, of course, Mana Traders helps us rent decks on Magic Online, which we all did, I assume, this week to be able to play the decks that we did. Get 25% off your cash back after 3 months of service with code THEDIVEDOWN from manatraders.com.
Yeah.
Stan, I have a surprise for you as we move into the topic.
I love surprises.
I don't know if you're going to love this surprise, but the decks that we all played this week turned out to be very relevant to one of the big paper tournaments that happened this week. And so I would love to talk a little bit quickly about Laughing Dragons Modern 20K 8-slot RCQ that was in Santa Clara, California. Are you ready for this?
20 is a lot of Ks.
20 is a good amount of Ks for only 229 players to be at the event, I believe.
Wow.
20K.
That's what, $200 per person?
Yeah, what if they just split the whole
a straight split
just a
at round one?
230-person split.
What do you guys say? Okay, everybody put your heads down on the table.
Yeah.
If you want to split, raise your hands. Do not peek. If even one person says no split, we're not splitting. Devon, do you take the split when you're in that situation?
No.
Have you done one of those?
I would never do that.
I've never done it either.
You guys don't take the split?
I don't take the split. No.
Not even top 4?
Well, I mean, once we get the top 8, of course, but
Oh, okay.
No,
I thought
didn't
you were still
take a top
talking
8
about
split.
the 230-person split or whatever.
Yeah.
We're not talking about the 230 person split, but
No, the one time I was offered a top 8 split like that, I did not take it.
wow, Dave. And how did that go for you? How was your EV on that decision?
Bounced in the first round of the top 8, buddy.
Nailed it.
nailed it.
There was the RCQ that we went to on Saturday. We split top 8 at the store credit. I think it was like
good.
1,200 credit at the top 8. So
That's
Yeah.
great.
Makes sense. All right, so just wanted to talk about some interesting evolutions in the meta. This is a tournament series that is on the West Coast, so a number of our players/listeners who are out in that area of the country sometimes get a little neglected by the tournament organizers. Laughing Dragon from Washington, they're from Washington actually, I believe, has been filling in that gap, including this tournament. One thing I wanted to give you a headline from, one of our listeners came in 42nd place on Boros Energy, and that's the last we're going to talk about Boros Energy today. But Josh, great job, Josh.
Nailed it, Josh.
Yeah.
Josh, can I tell you? I friggin' love you, man.
He's a very nice guy. We've hung out with him several times in person.
Yeah.
So, yeah, fantastic. All right, let's talk about the top of this meta. I have the top 10 decks here of what was played. The number 1 deck in Santa Clara this weekend, Eldrazi Ramp with 30 players. So for over 10% of the meta, actually closer to 15% of the meta was on Eldrazi Ramp.
dun, dun,
More on
dun.
that in a minute. Yeah. I mean, kind of surprised to see that at the top of the meta. I don't think it was the last time we talked about a big tournament when we did our whole thing.
I think it was still Boros.
Yeah, it was still Boros. And guess what? Boros wasn't even the second most registered deck in this tournament.
This is way more shocking.
Yeah. Izzet Prowess with 21 people, so just shy of 10%. The hot new old deck, Prowess. I'm going to say just Prowess here because I did go through and normalize some of the results of these lists because there were Izzet Prowess decks, there were Jeskai Prowess decks, and there is even one Brave Soul on Gruul Prowess. I did lump them all together under Prowess because they're not different, really. They're different meta calls, different card choices. That's fine, but they're not totally different decks. And, get mad at me. But that made Prowess the second most registered deck of the tournament, which is pretty interesting and surprising.
I'm not mad.
And they all had Cori-Steel Cutter, right?
From what I could tell, all of these lists have Cori-Steel Cutter.
Not surprised.
As a full playset.
That
They
card
are not
is
messing around.
Messed up.
That card is messed up, and we'll talk a little bit more about it when we get to Devon's discussion of his RCQ. The third deck on the list, Boros Energy with 20 copies. Boros Energy had 20 decks in the full meta, but sadly did not have a deck, or the highest placing Boros Energy list this weekend was 13th. Then there was a 20th, a 23rd, and a 27th. I did say we weren't going to talk much more about Boros Energy other than shouting out Josh, but here's the thing. Someone wrote into us in the last week and said, do we need to talk about Boros Energy again because it's posting near apocalyptic results on Magic Online right now?
Only just one challenge per week. There's always the one challenge where it just sweeps the top 8 and then all the other ones are normal.
I will say, I went through the challenge data for my metagame breakdown. I think of the 7 challenges over the weekend, I think it was 25% of the top 32 metagames. So,
ooh, that's heavy. Yeah, interesting.
Good deck's going to be good.
Good deck is going to be good. I do think it's a little interesting that it was not here in those kind of numbers, neither in the top 8 or in top 8, top 32, from what I can tell, or in the broader meta. It was a much smaller portion of the meta than that. So that's kind of your top tier. Ramp, Prowess, Energy. After that, Dimir Murktide, 16 decks. Orzhov Flicker with 14 decks. So Orzhov sneaking into 5th place in this meta. But here's the thing. Some of them are starting to not run Ketchermos anymore. I found at least 3 lists that do not have Ketchermos in them. They were grouped under a different name of Orzhov Flicker. So I would call this deck Orzhov Flicker, not Orzhov Ketchermos, or we could just call it Orzhov Midrange. That's fine too. But there is a little bit of people starting to play different cards. This deck also did not get into the top 8. The highest ranking one of these was in 10th place.
yeah, I've seen that trend happen a little bit more online recently. I believe it was Respect the Cat, I think was the first person that I saw play the black-white deck without Ketchermos. And they've been championing it for a while now. So,
What do you think the story is with not playing Ketchermos?
I couldn't tell you.
Yeah.
So
Every time I play against that deck, they play it on 3, and it's just like, I don't know how I'm beating this card.
You know, Respect the Cat has a rich history of making really bold deck building choices. They used to do that with 4-color Omnath decks, playing whatever the companion was that made everything cost 3 or mana or more.
Helga. Right?
Yeah.
Or no, Karuga.
Yeah.
So, and that's why some of us have play sets of Touch the Spirit Realm in our collection.
That is true.
Because-
yeah, I have some too.
Because we saw Respect the Cat tweet.
Because we respected a cat once.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that certain deck builders can make those types of bold decisions and profit off them, but Ketchermos is such a good card. I'd be really surprised if the deck evolves away from it.
Yeah.
Maybe the thought is that it's just too slow against Prowess. Like you're casting it on 3, you're not blocking it that turn, and you're not getting a lot of value out of it. You can only tap out for it. So like, I guess I could buy that, but I don't know. I'd still probably at least have a couple, maybe not 4, but
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. All right. The second half of this top 10, Amulet Titan with 13, Ruby Storm with 10, Domain Zoo with 9, Belcher with 9, Jeskai Affinity with 8. So a pretty diverse meta overall. The top 10, we're getting down to 3% of the meta being in that top 10 range. It's not like hugely tilted either way, anyway, really, but you know, one deck is close to 15%, 2 are around 10%, and then it kind of goes down from there. Pretty interesting, kind of what we expected. some of our combo decks holding on there in the second half of the top 10 decks.
Yeah, you mentioned Jeskai Affinity with 8 copies. That's a very important number when we take a look at our top 8.
Yeah, exactly. So here's the top 8.
Is it 8 copies of Jeskai Affinity?
Well,
It's 8
no.
copies of Jeskai Affinity. No, but I am going to go top to bottom here. So my understanding from Maria, one of our favorite judges, Looter Scooter, is that the top 4 of this tournament split and that they maybe weren't playing each other really when they finished this out. However, someone did win this tournament. And according to Laughing Dragon's Twitter account, that was Benny Zioli on Izzet Prowess. One of 2 Izzet Prowesses in the top 8. The second one was piloted by Christian Sanchez Walton. Second place, Jeskai Affinity, Devon Straub. Devon Straub went 8-0 with Jeskai Affinity on day 1, is my understanding. And then third place, Haven Gilbert Avia on Amulet Titan, who I believe went 7-0-1 or 7-1 the first day, was also nearly undefeated. And then the top 4, final deck in the top 4 was Eldrazi Ramp. So in case you haven't picked up on it, the decks we're going to talk about this week in a little more detail, Izzet Prowess, Jeskai Affinity, and Eldrazi Ramp. All of those appeared in the top 4 of this tournament. Eldrazi Ramp was piloted by someone named, let me see, I have his name down here because on Spice Rack GG, it doesn't have his last name. It's
Damien
Del Nero. Interestingly, and I'll talk about this a little bit more when I talk about Eldrazi Ramp, Damien Del Nero also top 8'd the Portland RC on Eldrazi Ramp as well. Devon, apparently someone you might be familiar with.
Yeah, I just
all?
remember the name from Portland.
Yep. And then the rest of the top 5, top 8, Jeskai Affinity again, Andrew Solano, Jeskai Control, Tin Fang Wan. In 7th place, Ruby Storm, Arthur Spring, featuring some Storm Scale Scions. Just saying. In Ruby Storm instead of Izzet Storm, though.
Dragons are good cards. I've
Yeah,
always
and then
maintained.
as I said, top 8, Izzet Prowess, 8th place, Christian Sanchez Walton. So, pretty interesting list here. We got 2 Jeskai Affinity, 2 Prowess, and then an Eldrazi Ramp to talk about.
Pretty good conversion rate for Jeskai Affinity, huh?
I
2 out of 8
think
copies.
So, yeah. 2 out of 8 makes the top 8. It's pretty good. Stan is reacting live. We're going to give Stan a minute to think about what he just heard about that deck, given what he played. But he also played a pretty different list from these 2 people.
Yeah, different in that it was probably strictly worse.
I think it was. I'm positive it was, actually, for a couple of reasons. But why don't we start with Izzet Prowess?
Yes.
Devon, you played Izzet Prowess this weekend. You want to talk about it?
I would love to.
All right.
So this deck really started picking up with the showcase qualifier that happened, I think it was last Saturday or Sunday, last weekend, whatever. And the original list from the showcase qualifier, that was the list I believe we talked about in a previous last week, where that had 2 Bedlam Reveler, 4 Channeler, 4 Swift Spear, didn't play any other threats, played a couple of Storm Chasers talents. I believe that list may have had a couple of Heat's main deck. And basically what the list that I found that had been popping up a lot more over the past couple of days, so this was, maybe 3 or 4 days after the showcase challenge had happened. The list that has been popping up more recently is playing more threats. Well, I guess roughly about the same number of threats. If you think of the previous list having 4 Channeler, 4 Swift Spear, 2 Reveler, 2 Talent, this has the same number of 1-drops, but instead of the other 2 2-ofs, it's playing 4 Slick Shot Show Off. So it's a little bit faster, a little bit more aggressive.
I mean, last week when we were talking, I was kind of like, I'm not a big fan of Bedlam Reveler.
Yeah.
Here, I wanted to love it. It's not pulling its weight. Didn't like Storm Chaser's talent either. Stan literally reminded me on air of the existence of Slick Shot Show Off, which is a card that I love and completely forgot about because it's been a minute since I played Prowess.
It was probably, unironically, one of the smartest things I ever said off the cuff on mic.
Hey, remember Slick Shot Show Off? Pepperidge Farm remembers.
Standard players know that one.
Oh, boy. Yeah, standard players do, and they do know this other card, too, because, of course, the card that has brought this back is Cori-Steel Cutter.
Right.
That's in here. But, Devon, what else is twisty about this list?
So this kind of package deal of the combination of free pump spell in the form of mutagenic growth combined with a card that listeners may have never heard before. This is Violent Urge. So it's sort of like a TBR-esque type of effect here where it's a single red mana instead of 2. You give a creature +1/+0 and gain first strike until end of turn. But if you have Delirium, then instead that creature gets double strike. So for a single mana, if you have Delirium, which most of the time you should, because you have 8 artifacts, 12 creatures, a good mix of instants and sorceries, and the fetch lands. I did not have a hard time getting Delirium. And the concept is you're utilizing that combined with mutagenic growth and obviously all your prowess triggers to kind of sort of one-shot them. It goes especially crazy with Slick Shot because, +2/+0 for each spell, plus the evasive nature of Slick Shot combined with Double Strike. But it also happens to work very well with Cori-Steel Cutter because if you can untap with the Cori token that's already equipped, ideally, that token already has Trample from the Cutter, and as you can probably imagine, Trample plus Double Strike plus Prowess, pretty good combination of keywords together.
Yeah. So this is one of those interesting things to me that happens with Prowess all the time, where it's like there's always this little pendulum here where it's like we're going to be tempo-y or we're just going to be fast, right? And this list to me feels much more like we're just going to be fast. Is that how you think these modifications are intended to play out?
Specifically with the introduction of Violent Urge, right? That when you're putting 1 mana give a thing Double Strike in your deck, you're not messing around. You were trying to get people dead as quick as possible. I will say, even sans Violent Urge, I was still pretty impressed with both Slick Shot, Show Off, and Mutagenic Growth. Specifically, with regards to Slick Shot, this is a line that I've learned a lot. I've been playing a lot of the standard versions of Cutter with that also Slick Shot, and the interaction where you just go plot on turn 2, turn 3, play the Cutter, play the Slick Shot for free, still have a mana left over to do something else, whether that be cantrip or use a kill spell. That is a pretty good sequence. So I think the Slick Shots are good by themselves, even if you didn't want to play the Violent Urges or the Growths. And I like Growth a lot because as we take a look at the metagame, Prowess was the second most played deck, right? And if you take a look at the removal spells in this deck, they're Lava Darts and Lightning Bolts. Neither of those cards are that good against Mutagenic Growth. And you kind of can do this sort of like mental misstep type impression where if your opponent just casts a bolt, you pay 2 life, counter the bolt, and you move on with your life. So I like that Mutagenic Growth plays offense and defense well. And on top of all of that, it's a free spell for Cutter.
Yeah, it's tough. I definitely, when I first saw these lists come back, look, I've definitely played a list close to this in previous iterations of Prowess, and I like Mutagenic Growth a lot of the times too. My gut has been for the past couple of weeks is that Manamorphose is very good with Cori-Steel Cutter, and maybe I'm wrong about that because the sequencing doesn't always work out great there.
Just not on 2.
It not on 2.
It forces it to be a turn 3.
Right. It's just you have so few ways to get cards in these lists generally, and having Preordain versus where things used to be with Prowess, I guess, kind of patches that hole a little bit more than it used to. But I just love having the extra cantrip in my deck, so I'm a little reluctant to kind of give that up when I look at this list as much as I love. I guess the thing I wanted to ask you was, I was curious if you were going to like Mutagenic Growth in these lists or not.
Yeah.
Do you feel like you have to play Mutagenic Growth if you're playing Slick Shot?
I wouldn't say that you have to, but I would say that it increases the high ceiling potential of Slick Shot because it's just going to die less often against, and even situations against Boros. Like I played against Boros a couple of times in the RCQ, and there were spots where the Boros player kind of like normally you would think against Discharge, oh, well, they're just going to have more energy left over. And there was a lot of spots where they had extra energy, but they put it into a Guide of Souls, right? They like get the 3, attack with Guide of Souls, and they don't really feel like they're in a position where they can not use the Guide of Souls because they have to try and race you. So in spots like that, they're depleting their energy with the Guide of Souls, and then they're out of energy when they go for a discharge. So if they have one floating, obviously your Mutagenic Growth is not going to work, but if they don't have any energy left over, if you're removing their Guide of Souls, then it still does work against discharge. The card that honestly I was not impressed with was Violent Urge. I was not a big fan of that card, and that just might be a product of the matchups I played against, where my matchup spread was Boros, Blue-White Control, Blue-Black Shadow, all fair decks, right? And the Urge is not really good in those types of matchups where you're tending to play a longer game. So like maybe it's better against Eldrazi and things like that, but not a fan of it, at least in my matchup spread.
Where did that come from, that technology? Is it seeing play in standard red decks?
No, it's seeing play in the Delirium decks, but those are like, few and far between in standard. But yeah, that's where I initially first saw Violent Urge. I know Spike played a lot with it when it first came out. He was doing like a Jund Delirium deck with like Fly Trap and FOMO and that kind of stuff. So that might be where it initially came from, or at least I first saw it.
I just wonder, thinking about Dave's point about wanting an additional cantrip in addition to Preordain, maybe that's the slot where you play like a crash through, even where you get a little bit of best of both worlds, trample plus cantrip for 1 mana.
That's
That's a throwback.
what was his name? Ryan
Overturf.
Ryan
Overturf, hell yeah.
Technology, mono red prowess technology for sure. Yeah, I love playing crash through in those days as well. Yeah.
But
nice guy, Ryan.
Notably, both of the lists that were in the Laughing Dragon top 8 were basically this exact 75. They were playing the Urges and the Growths.
Yeah, sorry, I should have mentioned that off the top. This is basically the same list for sure.
Yep.
That's why I was very happy when you posted that. Hey, this is the list I played this weekend. I was like, oh, I was ready to talk about this list because of this tournament anyway. But yeah. So your matchups, you played a bunch of fair decks.
Yep.
You made top 8.
I did.
What was your record in the Swiss?
So it was a 6-round Swiss. Round 1, I lost to Boros. Then the next 4 rounds were Goryo's Vengeance, Blue Black Shadow, another Boros deck, and Blue White Control. Beat all of those.
Ooh.
I need the last round, so 4-1-1. And then I was on the draw in top 8 because I got the 5th seed against Boros, and I got 2-0'd.
Okay. What do you think are the good matchups for Prowess right now?
Not Boros.
It didn't feel like it when I was playing it in the league last week either.
Yeah.
Which is kind of what surprised me about how many people converted in this tournament and how many people showed up with Prowess in this tournament, even knowing how much Boros there would still be. It didn't feel like a great matchup.
No, just like a pile of kill spells and a Flage is almost impossible to beat. And they have good answers for Cutter.
But they're shaving the kill spells, kind of. You're seeing so much. You're seeing a lot fewer static prisons, and they're sort of going all in on, maybe 1 or 2 Thraben Charms, but it's just 4 Galvanic Discharge and 4 Flages frequently.
That's a lot.
Okay.
4 Discharge, 4 Flage, 2 Prison. That's like you're gonna have 2. You're gonna draw 2 every game at least.
Gotcha. Yeah, fair enough.
Still a lot.
I imagine the bodies are a problem too, because you're not playing Crash Through yet, so you don't have a lot of ways to attack through.
Right.
And your best bet is trying to fly over with a Channeler or something, but your removal spells are really good against the 3 toughness creature.
Yeah, and it doesn't pump, so it's like, Channeler is awesome and extremely efficient threat, but it doesn't have prowess, so it's like it doesn't pump off all this stuff anyway.
Yeah, another issue I found was like the way that, because the Boros deck can snowball God of Souls so fast, when I was in the draw, I was like, my opening hand was maybe something, along the lines of, a couple of lands, a Channeler, a Bolt, and a Bauble. And I'm like, well, the way that my hand is played out, I want to Cutter on 2, so I really want a Channeler on 1 to get the pressure going. But if I do that, then I'm not killing the God of Souls until turn 3. And I can't really do that because then it's probably not going to be able to be it's not even going to be killable by that point. So it's like, whenever they have turn 1 God of Souls, like you basically have to just kind of sort of time walk yourself to kill it because you can't let them have it. So that's a problem. The blue-red deck, you're looking at the deck list right now, it can't kill a Flage. It's got a couple heats in the board, but, again, that's kind of risky. There was a couple of people online who were playing Jeskai Prowess, and they had 4 pending main deck, and I think that's what I want to try next.
Yeah, I would love to talk about that for a second, too, while we're here, because this deck, like I said, there were 2 of these in the Swiss. Neither one of them plays super duper high in the tournament, but yes, it's Jeskai Prowess, and there's some twists here. So it's Dragon's Rage Channeler, Monastery Swiftspear, Soulscar Mage, and 1 Flage. We have our own Flage.
Fight fire with fire.
Exactly. EI, Preordained, Prismatic Ending, Lava Dart, Lightning Bolt, Cori-Steel Cutter, Mishra's Bauble. That is your spells in the main deck. And then you have things like Chain to the Rocks in the side, Meltdown, Pyroclasm, Another Flage, Soul Guide Lantern, still 4 Consigned to Memory. You know, the stuff that you're missing out here really is...
Those flex spots.
It's the flex spots.
Basically, they cut the gross and the urges. They added 1 Flage, 4 Pending, and an extra land, essentially.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I was really reluctant when I looked at this at first, but when you talk about the fact that it is difficult for the blue-red deck to beat energy, I do start to look at this and go, should we be? Maybe, you know.
And the cool thing about having Pending in your deck is in that exact situation that I just talked about, where you have a Bolt, a DRC, and whatever, you don't feel as bad about letting them have the Gadda for a turn or two, even if they get it to 4 toughness, because you have Pending to kill it. Right. And that leads you, like, it feels like that situation, it gives you more options in terms of how you want to sequence your plays. And also in the mirror match, Pending can kill Cutter.
Yeah. And let me talk about one other card that's actually important in this deck that I definitely trashed last week and said I never want to play. Soulscar Mage.
Yeah, I still don't like that card.
So, but here's the one reason to like it. It's because if you Lightning Bolt a Flage, it actually makes it smaller to where it might die in combat against one of your creatures instead of just being like, oh, I have to use 2 cards on it every time. True. You can pump your guys up enough and then Soulscar Mage it, get it down to a 3/3, and then kill it if they try to block or something like that. Or if they attack and you try to block. So there's a little bit of game there for that, the rules text on that card, I guess, in this, if that's what we're trying to do with this deck. All right, so you would play this again, and you would probably go for Jeskai when you're moving forward?
Yeah, but I think I would try the Pendings in the main. Like, the way that I want to do is I want to play mostly the same list. I want to keep the Slick Shots and the Growths. I just want to try cutting Urge for the Pendings and then incorporating the Splash Lands. Yeah, I think it's where I'd want to be.
Awesome. All right, Stan, can we talk about the deck that went 8-0 in the hands of Devon Straub and maybe something different in the hands of you?
Yes. Well, in the hands of Devon Straub was a very different deck that was the same, perhaps in name only.
Yes.
Because what Devon and Andrew Sulanu played was like a proper affinity deck that is mono blue main deck, but has some red and white spells in the board.
Right.
And they're playing 3 Thought Monitor, 4 Thought Cast, main deck, Metallic Rebukes,
et cetera, et cetera.
Et cetera, et cetera. So like
you were going
capital
somewhere,
A affinity.
Yeah, and you were going somewhere different with this Jeskai Affinity deck thanks to Narset, Jeskai Waymaster, and a few other things, yes?
That's right. So I'm using that feature on MTG Goldfish where I look at a league and you scroll to the bottom and it says new cards and it's got like Bajuka Bog and Arboreal Grazer because they were reprinted in the Commander decks.
Mm-hmm.
But if you sift through that noise, it'll also have Dragonstorm Tarkir cards. And one of the ones that stood out to me was Narset Jeskai Waymaster in Affinity. So in the spirit of new cards that hardly anyone is playing, I'm going to read Narset.
Mm-hmm.
It's 3 mana, blue, red, white, for a 3/4 legendary human monk creature. At the beginning of your end step, you may discard your hand. If you do, draw cards equal to the number of spells you've cast this turn. And the version of Affinity I played bears a lot of resemblance to the old Underworld Reach combo decks because it's got Tameo and Emry, but it's also got 4 Bauble, 3 Mox Amber, 4 Mox Opal, and a bunch of 1 mana spells. Galvanic Blast, Shadow Spears, and Soul Guide Lanterns to get off of your Urza Saga, same with a Pithing Needle and an Aether Spellbomb. So you've got a lot of cheap ways to play multiple spells in a single turn. Every turn. And if you have, Emry plus Bauble online, in theory, you're naturally drawing multiple cards per turn, so you can continue to play multiple cards every turn and thus keep refilling your hand from Narset, essentially making it a kind of a grindy draw engine.
Yeah.
Look, it's a fun ability. but I found it ultimately very hard to deploy in a way that leads to repeat value.
Yeah.
My experience with this card and this deck in general was not enviable. Like I said, it wants to create this chain where you're repeatedly drawing zeros and ones to fuel this ongoing grinding engine, but it needs a lot of things to go right for that chain and engine to work. It wants to have Emery on the board so you can replay cards from the graveyard. It wants to keep drawing into ones and zeros, but you're also playing a handful of Kappa Cannoneer. You're playing Cori-Steel Cutter. So you're not only playing zeros and ones, you are playing some bigger mana spells. And even though you can make use of the mana from drawing multiple Moxen, even though they're legendary, you still don't want to necessarily like keep throwing out your Moxen in case something happens to it and then you need the one in your hand later.
Yeah. Yeah.
I will admit, I don't have a ton of experience playing Mox Opal or Mox Amber decks, so I may not necessarily be evaluating those cards in in-game situations as correctly as someone like Devon or people who have a lot more experience with Moxen in general.
Yeah. So did you league with this, or were you just tournament practice with this?
Oh yeah, no, I took it through a league. I finished with a 2-3.
Yeah.
And I will say my wins, I went 2-0. And my losses, I went 0-2.
So I wanted to ask you, did you feel like you were winning off of like Cori-Steel Cutter in this? Or were you, was it this just kind of like, I should have been playing Prowess, or what?
It was more like I shouldn't be trying to put grindy middling cards into my old combo deck unless I want to put a new combo engine in it. And I did not play the Jeskai Ascendancy version of the Breach Shell, but I know that's been popping up, and you can listen to the most recent episode of Grindcast where Lee talks about that in more detail as a possible new direction for the old Underworld Breach decks. But that's kind of what this made me feel like. It was on the one hand, wow, Cori-Steel Cutter is really good with a deck full of 0 mana spells, or a deck full of Mox Opal so that you can just play a second spell with 3 mana on turn 2. Or I wish I just had like a better combo engine to play, because Narset is not a combo engine. It's a grindy card draw engine.
Yeah, and I almost wonder if, and I think this is kind of what the Ascendancy decks are doing, where you basically just take the same shell, you have Tamiyo, Emery, Cutter, all the zeros, and you just pair that with the Ascendancy combo. And I think that maybe makes a little bit more sense, because like in terms of 3 mana cards, when you're talking about specifically Narset versus Ascendancy, it almost feels like they do similar things, where Narset is paying you off for having a bunch of zeros, which Ascendancy also does, but you need to have your zeros in a very specific time window. So like for what I mean by that is that the turn you play Narset, you play your zeros, you're not cantripping immediately, you're getting the cards at your end phase. Whereas Ascendancy is like, okay, you play Ascendancy, you play your zeros, and you can immediately keep going through cards in that same turn, which can maybe eventually just lead to a combo kill. So something, along those lines, basically just like the Ascendancy deck with Cutter is maybe something I would want to try.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it looks like a couple of people played the Ascendancy shells close to what you all are talking about at Laughing Dragon. They did not do well. They were both lower than 200th place. So it sounds like they were maybe 0-3 drops, 0-2 drops, something like that. But yeah, I think it's really interesting. We talked about this at the time of the ban, of the Underworld Breach ban, that the Emery, Tamiyo, Mox, Urza Saga deck was not going to go away. And now we have 3 that are floating around a little bit, right? So we have this capital A Affinity list, and I feel like the Affinity list did not adopt Mox, Tamiyo, Emery before the ban happened. Like when you saw Affinity, they were kind of like 8-cast decks. It felt like more, and now we're in this thing where we're like, okay, we're grinding, we're using these pieces that are, maybe we're flipping Tamiyo and doing a little bit of control and yada, yada, yada. So we have that. Then we have this like mid-rangey deck that somebody 5-0'd with that you tried, where it's like, oh, let's use Narset to draw a bunch of cards. And then finally we have these people who are just like, well, let's put a different combo in it. How about Jeskai Ascendancy that we've been waiting for 10 years to use in Modern at this point? So I think if anything we can take from this discussion maybe Stan found a version he doesn't think is very powerful, and he would try one of the other ones. Is that a fair conclusion?
Yeah. I mean, the most specific explanation is that a lot has to go right for Narset the card to work in this deck. And if you're facing interaction or you don't draw the right cards to play multiple cards for value, the fact also that it triggers on end step is sometimes awkward because you're not doing a ton at instant speed. You have Galvanic Blast and then, maybe Consigns or Metallic Rebukes out of the sideboard. But because you have to wait till end step and then you have to wait for a whole turn cycle to actually get to use those cards you drew off the Narset, it feels like it both wants things in play going well for the deck in general, for Narset to do its thing, but then the benefit of Narset is, extremely delayed, so that even if you are getting that benefit and it's doing its thing, you have to wait a while and hope to not lose before your opponent passes back.
Yeah. What's the weirdest thing to me about this card, actually? Narset. It's a 3/4 for 3. I feel like this card probably at some point in the design process had prowess itself. And it would be like an actual threat that you could plan to swing in with. If you were playing a deck like this and you're like, okay, I have this one big prowess threat, which you don't usually see. Usually the cards that are cheap with prowess are the only ones that matter. But if this was you get to refill at the end of turn, but this card also has prowess, so you dump your hand, you get the benefit from it. They get big, you attack, and then you swing in, maybe it's a 6/7 or something like that. You can actually do some chunk damage with it. That would be a much more viable plan, I think, than kind of what we're looking at here.
Yeah. So with regard to the games I won, Cori-Steel Cutter was a big piece of that puzzle. Like I said, being able to play Cori on 2 and then play a 0 mana spell immediately, or if you have, Mox Opal or Mox Amber tapping for mana on turn 2, then you play Cori and a 1-drop. It's triggering that way too. Being able to very frequently produce extra bodies with prowess is awesome. I was really impressed with that card. It was my first time playing Cori-Steel Cutter because I haven't tried prowess yet. I'm willing to accept this argument that it's the best card in the set.
Oh, it is
today
by a lot.
Yeah.
Maybe things shake out again in the future, but just it does a lot. It makes me feel like, is this going to be the new Fable of the Mirror Breaker, where you kind of just want to put it in every red deck? It brings the overall mana value down of every red deck. And is this really annoying value engine that it comes down with a body? If you don't deal with it, it's going to produce more bodies and more value that way. So it forces you into a 2-for-1 situation because you either have to kill the prowess creature or kill the Cori-Steel Cutter. We're going to start seeing main deck of braids or something that answer, or maybe more universal answers that can deal with artifacts as well. And maybe we're holding one of our hands behind our back by just not putting it into our Burrows decks and not putting into more of our red mid-rangey shells in general.
Yeah, I mean, I was even thinking about in the same vein of, you take this core of, Tamiyo, Emery, the Affinity stuff, the Opals, and you basically just take the Affinity deck that, we saw on the top 8 of the Laughing Dragon and just add Cutter to that. Because just again, the sequence of Cutter into Opal, the Cutter is an artifact for the Opal already. So you already have 2 towards Middlecraft, and then if you have any other 0, you can just start popping off the prowess triggers, and Emery getting you more spells to trigger prowess. It's just, oh God. I think there's something there.
I think it also plays well with Urza Saga in a weird way, because the construct tokens giving them trample.
Yep.
Having
and
something
haste.
Yes, exactly. And haste, but having something in addition to Shadow Spear to do that, so that you can give multiple tokens, extra juice while also making additional bodies. Urza Saga was really critical in those games I won too. So maybe there's something to Saga plus Cori, even though they don't seem like they intrinsically belong in the same deck because Cori is a 2-drop. They kind of support one another in a surprising way as well.
Are we just a Cori-Steel Cutter podcast now?
I'm down.
Like a fan cast? That's just what we are?
Cori.
I'm probably 90% to play that card in Minneapolis next week. So
Oh yeah, you're going to Minneapolis next week.
I am leaving next Friday.
Are you thinking that you're going to play Prowess?
At this current point, I mean, obviously we still have a week and a half left. If the tournament was tomorrow, yes, I would play Prowess.
And you would play Slick Shot?
I think so.
Find something else for the Urge?
Yeah. No, the RC is standard.
Oh, the RC is standard.
Prowess is standard still.
Oh, yeah. Well, Prowess, I did want to mention, and you've given me a good way to, it won there was a standard 5K, and Izzet Cutters won that as well at Laughing Dragon. So, yeah, I think you should definitely be playing that in standard for what it's worth.
Yep.
All right. Should we talk about one last deck before we get out of here?
I just think that if we're going to be a Cori podcast, we should be a 900 number Cori hotline where people call in and we just talk about words that rhyme with Cori, like glory,
Story,
allegory.
Shory.
Yeah. The Jersey Shory, one of my favorites. All right. So let's talk about something that definitely does not have Cori-Steel Cutter in it.
Dave learned how to count to 7.
I don't know if I did, to be honest. So we decided, there's one other card that we haven't really looked at a lot that is in a lot of decks in Modern right now. And that card is Ugin, Eye of the Storms. Devon, have you Storm-Eyed yet?
I picked up my second copy at the RCQ this weekend.
Okay, that's
Won
good.
some credits. So they only had one. I would have bought 2, but they only had 1.
There you go. All right, so I decided to try out Ugin, that I would try out Damien Del Nero's list from the event this weekend, from the Laughing Dragon event this weekend. And here's what's interesting about it. It's 3 Ugins in it. It's Eldrazi Ramp. It's no Karn.
Okay.
This list was no Karn. It's 1 Devourer of Destiny, 3 Emrakul the Promised End, 2 Sire of 7 Deaths, 4 Microspawn, 4 Chrysalis, a World Breaker. Then you have a couple of Ancient Stirrings, 4 Malevolent Rumble, 3 Kozilek Command, or 4 Kozilek Command, 3 Kozilek Return, and 4 Talismans, 4 Utopia Sprawl. So I think that this list, most of it is pretty standard to what even Eldrazi Ramp looked like in Portland, like at the last kind of set of RCs. Charlotte, I think it was pretty close to those as well. But essentially, we've swapped Karn out because we don't want Karn anymore right now.
Yeah.
At least Damien didn't want Karn right now. And Damien did the best at the tournament. So we'll see what we think about that over the next couple of weeks. But
yeah, it looks like Karn got swapped for Ugin. And I'm also noticing in a lot of these lists, a couple of Devourers got moved out for Sire of 7 Deaths.
yes. Yeah. Now, I do want to say, I looked at a whole bunch of the other Eldrazi ramp decks in the top 100 of the Laughing Dragon event. There was a few. There was probably 10 that had made it that far, maybe more. I didn't count. Every single one of them had Ugin in them. Not every single one of them had Karn, but lots of them had Karn and Ugin. Just Damien did not. So there are a lot of people who are playing the opposite kind of way with this, which is we're not playing Sire of 7 Deaths. We're not even really playing, we're kind of adjusting the creature package a slightly different way. Like maybe there's less Writhing Chrysalises, but we're playing 4 Karn and 3 Ugin in the deck. And I think that that's like a more controlling version. Is that how we would describe that? Versus what this is more, just a little bit more interactive is the way I think about it when I look at Damien's list.
Yeah, I think the idea behind Karn is that it gives you a lot of coverage against the unfair decks, which Eldrazi typically does struggle against, like Storm and Belcher and all this stuff. So Karn being not only a one-sided null rod, but also being able to get that specific sideboard piece for that specific combo matchup, I think is pretty huge.
Yeah, and I assume that losing Karn, the idea is to make you better against Prowess.
Yeah, and Boros.
Essentially, and Boros.
Yeah.
So because Sire of the Seven's Deaths can be a huge swing if you get an attack or a block in with one of those.
Do you really need to worry about being better against Boros, though?
I mean, no.
You do against Prowess, because we didn't talk about this when Devon was playing it. I do really think that Prowess has a pretty good matchup against Eldrazi. In my opinion, in my experience, it's done pretty well. I don't know what you think, Devon, after playing it.
I think that matchup is as close to a buy for Prowess as you can get.
That's what I think, too.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's weird that it's so different between those two decks that are, Boros isn't as aggro as Prowess, but they're both assertive decks. But Prowess does seem to be able to just go faster.
A lot faster.
Yeah.
Well, and the one thing I will mention about the Prowess matchup is that even in the games where you get Kozilek's returned, like Cori-Steel Cutter is a good way to buy back from that.
Yeah. You can work your way back for sure. So we're talking about Karn versus Ugin, that kind of stuff. Damien's list in Portland was basically this same list, except for it had Karn instead of Ugin, like we talked about. And there's some differences in Sire 7 deaths, like we talked about. But the thing is, when you don't have Ugin, what you have in your when you don't have Karn, what you have in your sideboard is Trinispheres and Nature's Claims is kind of what the sideboard here. So Damien is playing 3 Trinispheres, 3 Nature's Claims, and then a Kozilek return 4 Stone Brain and 4 Stone Rain. It's the brains and the rains of Stone. He had a lot of these same cards at Portland as well, but I think it was a 3 of Stone Rain, a 3 of Stone Brain. So it was a little bit more like carned up kind of sideboard. At any rate, all this analysis is a way for me to just delay saying, number one, I didn't league with this deck. I just played it in tournament practice. I did play like 6 or 7 different people in tournament practice, and this deck takes practice to play.
Yeah.
Like a lot of practice to play. I had a lot of hard time deciding, like, I mean, it's not too hard, like knowing what a fine keep is with this deck. I think if you're kind of like, oh, I have Labyrinth and I have a 7 and I have Chrysalis that I can get to on turn 3 or something like that off of it, or even turn 2 occasionally if you can go Labyrinth, Talisman, land on turn 2 and play Chrysalis. That stuff is all good. Micah Spawn, that kind of stuff, like that helped. The hard part with this deck is like, when do I command? What am I getting with Malevolent Rumble? When am I trying to slot that in to cast it? Like all of those kind of like cantrippy spells and maximizing that. And even Utopia Sprawl, like figuring out how to sequence in your Utopia Sprawls, I think can be difficult as well. I mean, basically, I think the first 4 turns of this deck is like, I am playing lands and trying to cast spells on curve that get me more lands as fast as possible so I can cast something big early on curve. But it doesn't always work out well. And I wasn't keeping track of wins and losses when I was playing people, but it was definitely like, I was definitely like losing a lot more and making a lot of misplays and being like, oh my God, why didn't I play my Talisman off of that extra mana that I thought was just burned and yada, yada, yada. So, yeah, there's some more work to be done if I was going to want to try to actually pick up this deck. I will say, for Ugin, because we're coming up to the hour here, I don't think Ugin actually changes the way that this deck works all that much. And my impression of looking at what people chose in the tournament after playing this, looking at what the decks looked like in Portland, is that Ugin is a very powerful card. It is probably somewhat meta dependent, or at least as far as like how many you're going to have in your deck and why you're going to have them in your deck, I think depends on the decks that you anticipate seeing. If there's tons of combo unfair decks, you might just leave Ugin out and just go back to a Karn only build, I think very plausibly. I think on the other side, if you want to be against assertive decks, like we were talking about a minute ago, you might switch to Ugin and just be happy with that and just try to kill their creatures as fast as you can with Ugin. But you really need to be thinking about the sequencing to get a lot of triggers as fast as possible. Because the thing that I didn't have work out for me was, first off, I barely ever drew Ugin in the like 10, 12 games that I played. Also, I only got to cast it once, where I was like playing against Prowess, and I could play either Sire 7 Deaths or Ugin, and I just wanted to play Ugin to see what would happen.
And then you lost.
And I lost. Like, I knew I was going to lose. I mean, I was in tournament practice. I was like, I'm pretty sure I'm going to lose. So I played Ugin. I killed their Cori-Steel Cutter with Ugin. Then I plussed Ugin, so I draw a card and gain 3 life. I had 1 blocker out. The next turn, of course, I could have been fine. They didn't have Cori-Steel Cutter anymore, but they did have a kill spell for my Micah Spawn. It wasn't a kill spell for my Micah Spawn. They fired off 2 spells into my Writhing Chrysalis to get it out of the way from blocking, and then I died. But it's what I expected to have happen. Right. I was kind of like, well, I'm going to play this card now just to see what happens. But like I said, my impression on it is I don't think it changes this deck, or necessarily, it didn't feel like it took it to another level to me. It just felt like maybe this is the right card for the right time, and maybe we'll switch later, or maybe we'll play one of these and some other thing main. That's just kind of where my impression was.
Yeah, the way that I felt about Ugin, because I haven't played it in the regular Eldrazi deck, but I think I mentioned either last week or the week before, where I played a little bit of it in Tron for the early access event. And I think that is where you really notice a big difference. And like the Eldrazi deck, Temple doesn't cast it. You have some ramp spells with the talismans, the rumbles, and the sprawls. But without the reliable way to cast it on turn 3 with Tron, I feel like that card is decent, but like Dave said, not necessary. It's like very matchup specific, right? Unless you build your entire deck around, I'm going to do this Ugin thing on turn 3 every game, then it's like, it's a little slow.
Yeah. So good card. Not a card that I think a lot of us are going to get to play. Devon dips his toe in Eldrazi sometimes, so maybe you'll be looking at it in a couple of months for some reason. But I feel like you should be prepared to see it around. But it didn't crazy impress me and make me think I have to play this deck now.
I wonder if the card belongs in a more traditional Tron deck where you're just getting 7 mana on turn 3 more often.
Yeah, that's Devon's kind of thoughts. Definitely mirror that. And I played against an Eldrazi Tron deck. I mean, the one thing that's interesting when you play against Eldrazi Tron, when you're playing this deck, is that you can just destroy their lands very quickly.
True.
You have all this main deck land hates, then you bring in Stone Rains, and it's like you can cast Stone Rain really fast. So it is an interesting matchup in that sense. I found myself hinging with this deck on destroying lands more than I thought I would, for sure, where I was just like, wow, my plan here really is to just Stone Rain them with a Hill Giant and hope that it stays,
I've been saying since I picked up the Eldrazi deck that Mycospawn's the best card in the deck, and I stand by that. I mean, Kozilek's Command is definitely like has a lot more versatility, but Mycospawn, it's so hard to beat that card sometimes.
Yeah, I agree. So obviously Eldrazi Tron still good deck, Ugin good card, but not a gravitational pull for me away from the Cutter camp. Let's say if we have these new camps emerging in Modern right now, we have our Voice of Victory / I didn't take a look, by the way, to see how many people were playing Voice of Victory and Energy and how many people weren't, which may be worth taking a look. But there's kind of Boros, Eldrazi, Cutters, and then maybe everything else for the next little Affinity, I guess, maybe is probably going to be on the rise as well.
So what you're saying is we should build a deck that has all 3 of Ugin, Cori-Steel Cutter, and Voice of Victory.
Yeah, and Mox Opal still, of course.
Okay. Touche.
Just go to the next level.
Boros Eldrazi.
Flage Drazi.
To wrap this episode, are there any other Dragonstorm cards that are on people's radars that you want to play for one last dip in the pool?
I have not seen anything else, I have to say. Devon, Stan, have you guys seen anything else?
I'm gonna go to the live. We're doing it live. I'm going to the Goldfish page and I'm looking at the most recent league dump. I'm seeing Voice. I'm seeing Ugin. I'm seeing Clarion Conqueror, but that's a sideboard card.
Yeah.
Scion and Storm, I guess. Not a lot.
The one card I still would love to try is Tursa Light Shatter.
For Boros.
Yeah. As a 3 mana 3/3 haste that can also get some additional value, filter your hand, and ostensibly draw you cards with that last ability out of your graveyard. But I don't know that that's the episode.
I do kind of want to try Cori-Steel in Boros at some point. And I think, Stan, you had mentioned that maybe you mentioned that last week, but because I know we were talking a lot about Voice, but we didn't really talk about Cutter in Boros specifically. And I think that there's I knew that Cutter was good, but I may have underestimated how completely messed up it was. So I think that's where I want to try next.
Yeah. Yeah. The tricky thing there is I feel like you almost can't play any 3-drops other than Flage if you're going to do that, because Boros right now, the way it's built, is so mid-rangey with oftentimes you're seeing, in addition to the 4 Flage, 3 Fable and then up to 3 Goblin Bombardment. And I think you're just playing all 1s and 2s plus Flage. And
yeah, I mean, I could even see going back to a couple of bolts too, just to give me more ones for the Cutter.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Stan, did you and Devon too? Did you see the Rhinos deck that was trying to day 2 this event?
I'm sorry. Did you say rhinos?
I did say Rhinos, although it's not the Rhinos you want, but it might be the Rhinos that we deserve.
Does it have electro dominance?
We've been searching for.
No, it's Halo Carrier, or what's the name of that 3-drop that casts a card from your
Halo
Forager?
Forager. That's why Dingo is playing that deck. Okay.
Yeah, it's Halo Forager, and it's got Frog in it.
So it's Dimir Oculus, but it has Halo Forager and Footfalls, right?
100%. That's what it is.
Okay.
Yeah,
That's not a Rhinos deck.
yeah. Sorry.
Well,
Kind of.
we've been saying how like the problem with the Dimir decks is that they only have 4 frogs. What if you increase your threat count by adding 2 4/4 trampling rhinos?
Yeah, but that's
For a single
8
card.
deck slots.
Yeah.
You have to play the Forager and the Rhino.
What's wrong with Forager?
The Forager
Devon?
flies in for 3. The best thing about Forager is that you can remove it with a galvanic discharge and still have 2 energy left to use on something else later.
That is a true statement.
All right. Well, so we don't like it.
So yeah, I saw it, but I haven't seen it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know what you mean. Props to that person for doing well on day 1, though.
Totally.
I'll say that.
Totally.
For sure. Oh, yeah.
Although I can't, because of course the list is not Dimir Rhinos, like the title of it, so I can't find it on the list right now.
It's probably just labeled like Dimir Murktide or something.
Exactly. All right, well, let's call it an app.
Hey, Devon, have you played Blueprints?
No.
Well, if you want to hear me and Shane talk about the hot new video game taking the world by storm, check out the newest episode of What's That in Your Pocket, which dropped on the same day as the Dive Down last week. 2 episodes, one Dive Down Podcast Network. What's That in Your Pocket? Find it wherever podcasts are served. But that does wrap up the Dive Down, which is the podcast you're listening to. If you haven't yet, make sure you subscribe to the Dive Down. Get the latest episodes as soon as they come out, and leave us a review on Apple and or Spotify. You can reach out to us via email, thedivedown@gmail.com, or you can find the Dive Down on Blue Sky. We have started getting some deck lists with Deathrite Shaman.
I saw.
Oh, even more.
Well, we got the one simple tip in the Discord, and we got one actual deck list in an email. So maybe we can carve out some time for next week's episode to just try that out and see what happens. If you want to support the show, you can join our Patreon at patreon.com/thedivedown. You can also support us through our web store at thedivedown.com/store. We have wonderful sponsors, including Heavy Play, which will give you 10% off your first order at heavyplay.com with promo code TheDiveDown2025. Honestly, I've seen this with my own eyes. If you just mention the Dive Down to the Heavy Play booth at a con near you, they're going to honor that discount in person very frequently.
Yes, they might.
Very frequently. If you talk to someone who knows us, that's almost certainly true. You can also get a discount with our promo code at Mana Traders. It's more like a rebate. Promo code The Dive Down, all one word, gets you 25% cash back after 3 months of the rental service. As always, special thanks to the bands Nowhere and Spaceblood for letting us use their music. Find Devon over on twitch.tv/Doomwake. If you have Amazon Prime, you can just give your Prime sub to Devon. It's free real estate.
That's what I heard.
And until next week, get out there and try Popeye's Pickle Menu.
Or, Cori-Steel Cutter. Crunch.
Pickle lemonade, really?
We need to call that card Pickle from now on.
Cori-Steel Pickle?
Let's go back to old school Magic deck names where things are inexplicably called pickles and things like that.
Oh, yeah, the blue combo deck.
I'm just going to make my font bigger.
Oh, no. Are you getting to that age? You need the bigger font?
Only when I'm staring at screens.
So 95% of your life?
Yeah.
Yeah.